happy Monday or whatever day it is that you're listening to this.
Welcome to the couch. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good 2020 thus far. Carlie, we have a guest with us today.
We do. We have a guest. First, if you rock with us, please make sure you leave us a review, 5 stars only, of course. And if you feel so led to leave us a comment, please make sure that it's amazing. We really appreciate you. Screenshot and then share the podcast with anyone who's listening or who you think should listen. I'm just really excited because I have one of my friends and someone who super inspires me in a lot of areas. My friend Nick Brooks.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks happy for being to
here.
You.
Where do you know him from?
So I met Nick in undergrad at the University of Oklahoma. And yeah, so in Oklahoma, it's just funny that I meet random people in Oklahoma.
I thought you said you went to Howard.
He did.
Story not adding up. Story's not adding up early.
So he did, but Nick was one of those people that was just mad cool, but like we weren't friends. Like we see each other like, hey, but we weren't really friends in undergrad. But he was super dope. I always knew him from music. He was a rapper, like made music, producer, anything with music, like him and the homie Nate. That's what they did. But then he went to Howard, and then we reconnected recently out here in LA. Like, yo, like we both out here. Let's just, get lunch and started talking and couldn't stop talking.
I thought you were about to say, let's get lit.
I mean, it's super dope because, like I said, we kind of knew each other, but after like sitting down and talking to him and realizing like all the dope things he has going on and just like, like our goals are very similar and in alignment with building up the community and just giving back and doing a whole bunch of dope things. And so that's my introduction for Nick.
And I wish I remember which episode it was, but we did shout him out because he's also an author. So we talked about his book as part of a shout out one time, and Carlie did, I'm sure it was like a little speech too about that. So that's him, or this is him rather. And then we'll get into that, of course, too later.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm excited to be here.
I want to know why you was in Oklahoma after we just talked about D.C. for 20 minutes.
Well, I was trying to get out of D.C.
Same.
I was trying to get away, you know what I mean? And I had a great time in Oklahoma, met some great people, but ultimately had to end up going back home. You know how that is, financial stuff and all of that. So my mom was a professor at Howard, and so I got remission. So she was like, look, this is not working out.
So you was really kind of just trying to avoid it, but you knew you had that in your pocket too.
Well, yeah. So after my first year at Oklahoma, she started working there, and I had a scholarship at Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
And it basically ran out, and by the time I was eligible for remission is when the scholarship. So everything happened for a reason. It was kind of like one of those timing things, and she was like, "Well, look, I've been here for 2 years now. Come on back home, and the rest is history."
So you do a lot of stuff, but how would you describe what you do? Like if I was say, hey Nick, can you give us a mini introduction about yourself? Like what would you say?
Gotcha. I would say I'm a author, filmmaker, and real estate developer.
Okay.
Yeah. And also an educator as well. Yeah. Is that I don't know if that sums it up well. But.
No, that's perfect because I would keep rambling, but that's a great way to surmise everything. When we think about episodes and guests, we always want to have dope people, so check. But then we also want to make sure that our listeners, like you guys, walk away with things that are actionable, things that pour back into you and fill your cup and help you elevate to the next level. And I was talking to Nick about a lot of the amazing things that he does. And like, okay, of all the things that you do, like what is it, that is your thing or that you want to share, that you want to talk about? And he mentioned doing a deep dive into the creative process and talking about filmmaking from start to finish. And so of all the things that you do, like why is that the thing that you want to share?
Yeah. I think it's just the thing I'm most passionate about. I just love filmmaking. Stems from my relationship with my dad. I didn't see him often. I saw him maybe growing up, like maybe once a month or so. But every time I saw him, all we did was watch movies. You know what I'm saying? Like he was broke, so we just sat at the house and watch movies, watch TV. But it was something. I mean, just as a kid, I remember that was what gave me a lot of joy. And so, I mean, as an adult now, I know that that's what I want to do. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to tell stories. And it's the thing that's on my heart the most. And I feel like I'm really good at it. I feel like I'm really good at storytelling. And so that's kind of the drive. That's the main thing, the main focus.
Which part of filmmaking is your focus?
So I'm a writer-director. Right now I'm finishing up at USC, getting my master's in film and TV production. And so coming out, I'm actually looking to, direct my first feature film later this year. So,
well, that's good because I'm glad that you want to talk about the creative process as a writer then, because I think that is something and I want you to correct me if you don't think it's true, but I think it's something that people kind of can have, the art of storytelling, but also I think there's a lot of skill involved in good writing. And like a lot of times people think they can write a script or write something, and then it's like, yeah, all of a sudden this doesn't even feel like real words, like what people really say. We can watch stuff on TV now, and because a lot of my friends are filmmakers in this area as well, like we watch it and we're like we can criticize everything. And so I am very interested in like, how do you create? How do you find your ideas? How do you flesh things out?
Yeah, we can talk about all of it. And,
yeah.
and I mean, just really quick to your point, I think you're right. Everybody has the innate ability to tell a story. Like, even when you're recounting like a car accident, right? You have a beginning, middle, and end, like just naturally. But to your point, it's like the skill part is like in the structure or, character arcs, all these little things that might not be top of mind, but the general structure of a story, we all kind of have that innate ability. So it's just about like tapping into it, or, learning the skills and putting it to work.
And that also helps connect why you said author first, because I was wondering if filmmaking was so passionate for you, why you would say author. But I guess with writing and directing as your focus, that all makes sense too.
Well, I like to say that I'm a storyteller. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to give you a broader, but at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller, 100%. Because even like Carlie spoke to with me doing music, like if you ever listen to my music, I'm
good music is storytelling.
I'm 100% a storyteller.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm straight up storyteller. J. Cole, Kendrick, DMX. Like that's
give
my
us
kind
a
of
couple example bars.
Right now?
No, I'm just playing with you, to be honest. I don't even want to hear that, to be honest. I'm going to be here like, I'm going to put some cricket noises on the video. They're like, that's what he got?
Everybody going to be stuck in deep thought. Nah, I'm a storyteller. So I think...
Can we link to something in the show notes too?
Absolutely.
Whatever you want us to link to.
We'll do that.
Okay.
But in every kind of facet of what I do is always about telling a story. Whether it's education, whether it's film, whether it's music, whether it's the adventures of Yanni, that's all storytelling.
Awesome. And so you always knew you were a storyteller, had this affinity for movies, like with your dad and growing up, but then you were a rapper. So how did you get into filmmaking? Like, did you know that was always your end goal, or?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily know it was my end goal. At first I thought rap was the end goal, then I made a kind of a pivot to writing. It's one of these things as a creator where like you're working a job, but you have this passion, you know what I mean? And not to say that me being an educator was just a job, because it was something I fell in love with, which is what caused the pivot to to Yanni. And so when I started doing Yanni's
the children's book.
My children's book is 100%. Yeah. Started doing Yanni, and it did well enough for me where I felt like I didn't need to just have the job to be a creative. Like I had Yanni. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, I still didn't feel filled, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like Yanni was great, but it was still something like I need to get something off. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, it just came. I was like, yo, I want to make a film. And so I wrote a short film. This was in Dallas, Texas. I filmed it. And
Triple D.
Yeah, and it was an amazing experience. And I'm sure, as y'all know, as creatives, like when you have like, another thing I got a bunch of like fucking phrases and shit.
Say it.
But another thing I like to call myself is an alchemist, because like the idea of alchemy is like taking something that's valueless and making it like priceless, right? And so as a creative, just having an idea has no value to anyone. But then taking that idea and making it priceless is like the process of alchemy. So I like to say that as creators, we are alchemists. And so, but that feeling you get when you take that idea and you bring it to life, that's like a feeling, like it's a high that you don't get doing anything else. You know what I'm saying? And so when I made that film, doing rap, you record a song, is you kind of get that high. I made my first film, and it was like, on another level. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so that's kind of how I got to that.
What projects have you done, or is that the only major project you have right now? So
that project was called Hoop Dreaming. I did another project called The Legend of John Henry, based on the folktale of John Henry. I'm sure y'all familiar with. Then I have a film coming out this year called B, which is a story of a young black girl going to an affluent all-white school and struggling to be accepted. So those are the three shorts that I have. And then, like I said, I'm in development for my first feature film. It's called We Were Born Kings. It's a story of a young man who is kicked out of his house by his mom the same summer his dad gets out of prison. And so him and his father are kind of forced to reconnect, and young Titus learns a lesson in manhood.
Have you seen any of his shorts, Carlie?
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't.
Are they anywhere for people to see, or have you submitted them to anything?
Absolutely, yeah. So Hoop Dreaming did pretty well. We were runner-up in the Forbes 30 Under 30. That was probably the biggest festival we were in. Well, we were also in the International Children's Film Fest up in San Francisco, which is a pretty big deal. B has already been selected for 2 festivals. It's like I said, it's unreleased. It just came out. Well, it hasn't come out, but I just wrapped it late last year. So yeah, B I'm really excited about. Fingers crossed I'm gonna get in the ABFF. That's one I'm really looking at. Trying to get it to HBO. And yeah, so definitely done a lot of festivals. In fact, when B, there's a festival here. This is the Pan African Film Fest. I'll make sure y'all get an invitation. It's that takes place.
I have a friend who has some stuff in there too.
Okay, yeah. So I'll make sure y'all got to come. You probably got an invitation, and you beat me to the punch.
Well, I'll still take mine.
Yeah. Come on out, and that'll be the premiere. That'll be the LA premiere of B.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, because that is coming up, right?
It'll be this. Yeah, it'll be this spring.
Okay. That's exciting.
So hopefully y'all can come through.
Okay. Oh, that is exciting. And so how are you able to, or is this in conjunction with your studies, like that you are able to do this and use that, for your projects and things?
It is. It is because I'm meeting the network at school. The people I need, the people that I grew up with are people that I meet at school that come and kind of help me with my project. So there's some other shorts that I've done that are more specific for school that, there's a ton of them. I've done like 10, you know what I mean? I could talk all about them, but those the 3 I named are like the 3 big ones. And those are the ones I kind of executive produce.
It's your concepts.
Yeah. That I take. And again, that idea of taking that idea and bringing it to life is tough. And this is something I'm going to have to, and all filmmakers and going to have to get accustomed to. But once you have that idea and you go into like a studio and USC kind of acts as the studio at USC, they start changing your shit and like not letting you do what you really want to do and giving you all types of, So the ideas that I'm really precious about, I like to kind of keep for myself, and I just do it on my own.
No, that makes sense. So you talk about this idea of alchemy and like taking these ideas and turning it into a short. So when you first did that, like what did that process look like? Yeah. How'd you get the inspiration? Like where'd you start?
Yeah, I think it starts with the script, 100%. Like you gotta had a story down. I think once you have a really, really solid script, probably like 75% of the work is done. Like you can expect to have at least a decent project.
What makes a solid script?
I don't agree with that at all. There's too many things you could botch up.
There is, but the thing about and that gets into was the script actually solid? Because
because the camera work has to show your story too, and like how you do things.
100%. For me, what makes a story solid is like the emotional connection that I get that I have with the characters, right? And so I've seen some really bad work, right? Some really, really bad work, but I still feel this character, and I still think about that story. And so even though it's not something I might see on TV or this and that, because I go to sleep at night and I still think about that character, and to me that's a successful film. And so I think it definitely 100% starts with the script. Has to be great. It has to draw us in. It has to give us an emotional connection to the character. To your question of like what makes a solid story. From there, it's about finding the right people to work with. To your point of like, botching things up, you want to make sure you have, a solid cinematographer and a solid set design. I mean, every single editor, every single role is so crucial. Set design, wardrobe, hair and makeup. Like you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with a whole team that's going to take this script and help you bring it to life. Producer, right? And then from there, you go into pre-production. You start casting and start, finding your locations. And
how long is this process?
Well, for me, on a short film, like so B is about 17 minutes long. That was a long process just because again, I had to make sure the script was right. And so that one, I went into a partnership with the young lady that I was working with. She actually came to me with the idea of B. And we worked on that script, I want to say, for about 4 months. Again, just because I wanted to make sure it was 100% solid. But from there, once the script was good, pre-production maybe took about 6 weeks. And then we filmed it over 4 days. But our 4 days were broken up into 2 different weekends. And then to be honest, post is like
the longest.
Yeah, post is the longest process, really, because I mean that's where the film is really made. You know what I mean? Yeah. They say like a film is written 3 times. On paper, when shooting and in the editing room, and then so the post process was the longest. That took probably like 3 months. And there's still things I'm going back and I'm like
Were you able to fund it yourself, or did you find outside funding? I think that's what slows a lot of people up too.
It does 100%. I actually funded. So my lead actress was a executive producer as well.
Okay.
So that was a blessing. It's like, and she's somebody I worked with before. She was actually in Legend of John Henry. So she's seen my work. She's seen the success that it had. She trusted me. She trusted my vision as a director, and she wanted to do more work. And so I said, well, I have this project B. If you want, well, one, you have the lead role anyway. You know what I mean? Like, that was a given. But she also wanted to come on as an executive producer.
Yeah.
Just to, one, to start getting her practice up doing that, but then two, for any benefits on the back end that she might be able to reap for that. So we split it. It was me and her, and that's how we funded that one. But finding money's tough. That's actually the part I'm doing now for the feature. Like, I'm already reaching out to like people that I know, people in my network, trying to get meetings with people so I can start getting funding, because that's like, obviously you can't do anything without the money. Like, so that's what I'm working on now. But I will say, for anybody who wants to be a filmmaker, like, don't let that stop you. You know what I mean? Like, Hoop Dreaming, for the success that Hoop Dreaming had, I made Hoop Dreaming with $200. Yeah, and it doesn't look like it at all. Hoop Dreaming is actually what got me a full ride to USC. I got a scholarship to USC. I got a scholarship from George Lucas, who's the creator of Star Wars, and I got a James Bridgen and Jack Larson award for writing and directing. And Hoop Dreaming was one of the projects I did that got me that, and I made that film for $200. You know what I mean? It flipped into however much USC degree is worth, right?
It's a lot.
So you see what I'm saying? Like, don't let that stop you. Call in your favors. You know what I'm saying? See who you know. What can you barter? Like, just don't let not having the capital, the liquid capital, don't let that stop you if that's something that you're really passionate about.
I kind of want to go back to the storytelling aspects of it. If that's kind of where your focus is, because when you named some of the shorts that you've worked on and are working on, sounds like they kind of have common themes or certain concepts that you like to focus on. Can you talk about that? Like, what's the themes and concepts that's important to you and what you want to bring out in your storytelling?
Yeah, I think a big thing in a lot of my stuff is the idea of coming of age. I think everything I've worked on has been like a coming of age story. It's been a story of struggle, you know what I mean? And a story of acceptance. And those things come, from my own shit, right? Like, those things come from things that probably that's on my mind, or that I'm working through, or things that really mean a lot to me. I mean, I have other stories that are more, what they call high concept, that are maybe not as much theme driven, but those ones that are really dear to me, again, that emotional connection, they kind of center around those things.
Like teenagers is like the main character kind of? Or
yeah, exactly.
People of color, or what about
people of color?
That?
For sure. People of color. People of color, always, not always, but so far they've all been people of color. Always, preteen, teenager, young adult. Those are definitely the realms I like to focus on. Again, just that coming of age story. It's what I relate most to. You know what I mean? I have a lot of life to live, and I feel like probably the most pivotal moments in my life came during those times. And so those are the things that I'm still like, again, it's also like a little bit of like therapeutic. You know what I mean? Like, some of the things I write and some of the stories I want to tell. Also knowing the people who look like me and people in my network and in my community, I'm also telling stories that I know they want to see. You know what I mean? Stories that will inspire them and lift them up. So, but yeah, that's the coming of age is definitely my bag right now.
What are your, what's the word? I can't think of it. It's escaping me. Like when certain people in their art, they put a little thing like throughout their work. Like, is there any anything specific like you really try to put in?
Or stuff like that.
Like your calling card type thing. Is there any like, this kind of thing always happens? Or
you see a symbol or something?
Yeah. Not particular. I mean, I like to do, some of my camera work, you could kind of say it's like that. Like, I like to do like the
you can really see the style.
Yeah, I like to do a lot of movement. I like to do a lot of close-ups, a lot of long lens. But that's kind of a style that's like emerging anyway. That's kind of like the new auteur like look. You know what I mean? Kind of indie look. I would say though to really answer your question, it would probably be in like the dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, or the texture of the film. Like, I think a lot of my films are really authentic. And this actually comes from writing lyrics. Is like the way I write dialogue is very lyrical. So like, the one thing that people in my program, professors, everything that they will definitely say about my work is like, on the page, when you read my script, it like really, they all love my writing. You know what I mean? Because it's lyrical in a sense. And I think that comes from writing music. And so that's kind of been a benefit I've had.
Yeah.
But that's something that if anybody reads my work at school, they're like, oh yeah, Nick wrote this. You know what I mean?
When you say your writing is authentic, do you tend to focus on your characters being from a certain place that you're familiar with, or does it mean take a lot of research? I kind of I'm asking a lot about the writing because I kind of want to get some tips on like how do you write a good story or how do you put these concepts together?
Yeah. So, I guess the first thing is like writing what you know, or like writing something that you're close to, so that you can build characters that feel dynamic. Build characters in real life situations, or things that are unique, things that are not, trite.
Is that step one? I guess I'll let you start. Like, what's step one about? Man, you kind of have a story, and I don't know what the idea might be first. Maybe you're thinking about something happening. Maybe you're thinking about a person. But like, what do you do to write this out?
And I think I would take it even a step back before that. Like, I have, Who Dream and Be, We Are, what is it? We Are Kings.
We Were Born Kings.
We Were Born Kings.
Yeah.
Did they all start off like, oh, I have this character in mind that they need to go through, or did that have this transition?
So I'll give you an example. We Were Born Kings is based on a true story, right? When I was teaching, and I don't want to bring it down too much, but when I was teaching, this really happened with a student that I had. He was struggling in school. His father came out of prison, and we started working together. The student made a huge turnaround. Like he got really, really like happy, he was becoming successful. And one day I went to school, and the principal pulled me aside and said, hey, Ortiz's dad was just killed in a triple homicide.
Oh, wow.
And so to this day, it's been probably one of the most heartbreaking things, that I've seen. And even a step further, I had to tell him. Like 3 weeks went by, and he was like, Mr. Brooks, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, how come we don't meet with my dad anymore? And so nobody had even told him. And he didn't know?
And you said his dad had got out now? Or was that your story? Sorry.
No, his dad had got out of prison, and we were working together, but his dad was killed. And so the kid was in a really tough like home situation. And so to your question, We Were Born Kings, it comes from a real place. You know what I mean? It comes from a real story. It comes from, and so when I'm writing and I'm thinking about this kid, there's layers, and there's there's interactions that I really had. And so that's for your question, like that's kind of the first place I start, like either a personal experience, something I've seen, something I've read. Like for B, Morgan Jefferson was the writer. She came to me. This was a real experience she had. Like when she first like moved out to the suburbs and went to this new school, nobody would talk to her. She's a young black woman. Nobody would. And at this time, I think she might have been like 8 or whatever. But that was a real experience. And so I think when you're wondering like, okay, what's the first step? Like, think about that experience that sticks with you. You know what I mean? Or that
your story that you have to tell.
You know what I'm saying? That story that sticks with you. Think about that, and maybe that'd be a good place to start, because that's something that you're gonna really pour heart into. And when you ask what makes a good story, it's got that emotional connection. And so if you have a story in your heart, that's half the battle. The emotional connection is there. So that's kind of the first place I start. Step one for me right now, I like to make sure my structure is pretty tight, so I do an outline. I think an outline is probably your best friend, like going into writing a script. I can't imagine doing a script without an outline. So I'm starting act 1, you know what I mean? Act 2, act 3. If you're not too familiar with structure, there's a lot of books on structure, on like how do you structure a script? What does an act look like? What is a inciting incident? So I'll give you some of those things. So the one thing is like the inciting incident, right? Like, what's the thing that happens that is about to start this character's journey, right? So like in Shrek, it would be, when all the animals show up at his swamp. Like that's the inciting incident. You gotta have that. You gotta have that first, like, okay, we see that his life is like, it's when your character's life changed, basically. Like the first moment we get a glimpse of change. So you want your inciting incident, and then you want your lock into the story. So your lock into the story would be when Shrek goes to the king and says, hey, get these people out. And he says, okay, we'll go get the princess. Like now we know what the story's about to be about. It's about him going to get the princess. So you got your inciting incident, you're locked into the story. And then you have, I could keep going on, but then you have that pretty much takes you to your second act, and that's what everything your film is going to be about. So in Shrek, it's all about this journey to get this princess, and so once you're there, you know, you're on your way. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question. But step one, finding the story you're connected to. Step two, doing the outline, making sure your structure is tight. And then in that outline, making sure you're having your exciting incident, making sure you have your lock into the story, things like that. And if you don't know structure, get in the book, looking up structure, figuring out how to, because that's something you mentioned earlier. Like sometimes,
like there's real stuff to learn.
There's real
and
stuff.
you think you know how to write because you're watching stuff. But I think a lot of people don't really connect that's what it is. Like, starting with an inciting, you know what I mean? Like thinking about what it is. But what I want to ask you too is, at what level do we stick to structure, and at what level do we get creative, or like think about a lot of shows now that are more, and this is shows, not necessarily features, so maybe it's not the same, but a lot of shows now are more air quote random, to where you think it's about this and it changes and it changes and it changes. You know,
like when Ned Stark head got cut off.
Like what makes but like what do you follow and what do you do of your own?
I mean, I think it varies from situation to situation. Like somebody who talked a lot about that was Greta Gerwig, who did Lady Bird. I think I'm pronouncing her last name right, but she actually did like a podcast on literally all on structure. And because a lot of people say Lady Bird doesn't follow a traditional structure, and so again it kind of varies, but I would say at the end of the day, the one thing that has to be true is your audience has to, your audience there has to be a tension in the story. And this is, again, what I've learned. There has to be some type of tension of like what they call like a hope versus a fear. What do I hope and what am I afraid of? And if your story doesn't have any tension, then you don't have a story, right? So even if the structure isn't perfect to like save the cat or whatever, you have to have a central tension. If you don't have a tension, the audience is not going to care about what happens.
Okay.
And I heard you speak about some shows. I know, like, you know, there's a lot of shows, and some, I think
or even like Atlanta or something, for example, or
and so Atlanta's actually interesting.
Family Guy type style. You know how it's just like wherever.
Yeah. Atlanta's interesting because there might not be like a traditional season arc, but every single episode has like a very, very clear structure. Actually, it's you know, right from the jump of the episode, we know what it's going to be about. We're watching Earn or whoever go through this journey, and so Atlanta's structure is kind of like a character wants something, they go through a journey to get it, and then they come out on the other end having that thing, but they've changed in some way. That's literally how.
Or sometimes they don't get it.
Or they don't get it.
Or sometimes they don't get it, but they change in some way. And the times that they don't get it, a lot of times is they change in a way that we're happy about. They change in a way that we knew that character needed that change. And so that's kind of the structure of Atlanta. And that's, I mean, to be honest, that's the general structure of literally everything. In a story, is like a character wants something, they try to get it, and either they get it or they don't. But sometimes we're not concerned if they got it or not because the character changed. You know what I mean? And that's what we are really rooting for.
And so the structure is typically present in everything. And I think it seems like the stylistic of the camera work and cinematography, as well as the actual writing of the characters, is what really can make you feel like you watch something like, oh, this is kind of different, but it does still follow the same hooks to get you in.
Absolutely. 100%. It follows the same type of structure, but you're right. The camera work and all of these tools, filmmaking tools can elevate it, or it can kind of leave it. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. You know what I mean?
Or sometimes it's doing too much and you're like,
sometimes it's really,
we don't need all these like close-up shots on, you know, comedy or whatever it is, or not on comedy, but like, you know, people are trying to like show you everything they can do, like with their angles and stuff, and it's like, all right,
and then you, because ultimately
the story not even good enough for all that.
Well, I'm about to say, ultimately the thing that we really, really care about is the story. Like like I feel like that's just like a natural thing. And so when you start doing all that other shit,
it distracts you from the story.
So now you like, again, it goes back to now I don't even know what this is about anymore. And that's where you know what I'm saying? So I think, and that brings you back to, you got to have a solid script. You know what I'm saying? If the script is really, really solid, then you have a roadmap. You know, my story's locked. Like I got a great story. So start with that script and learn structure.
No, I think that's super helpful. Do you have any like lessons learned or things throughout your journey, and like maybe through your first short through now, like working into your first feature, that might be helpful for other writers or people getting into filmmaking?
Yeah, I would say so when you do write, like let people read it. Something I've found, like when I meet people, they're very timid about letting people read their work in a way that's like kind of like a for lack of a better phrase, turn off. It's like kind of weird. They're like, I don't know if people should read it, but it's like, yeah, I mean, yes, people can take your idea, but if you don't let anybody read your work, I don't know what you're doing then. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
I'm real anti that, because I feel like in our communities, especially too, I see a lot more fear of putting your ideas out there because you think somebody's gonna take it. Yeah. And what I found is like most people are lazy as hell, and nobody's gonna do this shit. Like nobody's gonna take it, nobody's gonna do nothing with it. Yeah. And half the time you end up sitting on it and you see somebody else do it while you didn't do nothing.
Exactly.
Even if they did take it, they're not you also. Like so
but they're not gonna take it. Like period. They're not gonna take it. Like people all the time tweet ideas on, oh man, delete this. Like nobody's gonna do this shit.
Nobody's gonna take it. The thing is let people read your work.
Yeah, and you need real people feedback, and you need to watch your ego too, I'm sure. Exactly,
and that's what I was going to get at, is like you need the feedback. You know what I'm saying? You need other eyes. You need diverse perspectives. You know what I'm saying? To make sure the story is the best it could be. So like when I first did, like to your question of like what are some things I learned when I first did Hoop Dreaming, I probably let maybe 2 people read it. And so I can imagine after years of doing this and now collaborating with more and more people and seeing how a project just grows and grows, I'm like, damn, like what if I had let 10 people read it? Like I don't know what it could have become. Yeah. So that's one thing for sure. Let people read your work. Don't be afraid to collaborate. Like I said, don't let money stop you. You know what I mean? Like find ways to do it, whether you're bartering with friends or whether you are calling in favors or just trying to tap into your network.
Can I ask about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's a weird thing about what you choose to call your favors on, and how do you know you're at that point where like I'm confident enough in this that this is the one I want to call those favors in, because I feel like you get like a good one time where maybe somebody's gonna help you. But even thinking about some of the people who are my peers in filmmaking, right? Like they're not Steven Spielberg yet, but they're now at the point too where they're like, man, I can't just help everybody. I can't really do certain things, or if this isn't gonna, and not to be selfish, but like if it's not gonna help me, like I don't want to miss days of paying jobs and other things. How do you know if they're like, this is the one?
Yeah.
Because if it ain't,
I don't know if there's a way to know 100% for sure. But what I will say is, for me, I think I'm like a planner, like a heavy planner. Like I always got a strategy, I always got a plan. And I that's another thing I see people just kind of doing shit. Like people that just move out here and don't really even have a plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Talking about me.
I didn't really need a plan.
If you don't need a plan, that's cool. If you are. But me, I kind of like I kind of move on my own back. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't really have people to lean on. So I have to be like that. Like I have to plan, because I know I'm gonna be somewhere sleeping on the street if I don't make that plan. And so, but getting to your question, I think if you have a project and you have an intention with that project, right, and you know the plan for the project, at least for me, that made me really comfortable with calling in favors, because I know I'm like, yo.
You got to be sold enough on it to really have enthusiasm to tell other people. Because I think a lot of times, like you said before, some people, also are scared to talk about their projects and stuff. And even me sometimes, like, because you're like not all the way like confident about your own stuff. But it's like, if you're not, then why do you want people to help you on this anyway?
Exactly. If you're not confident on it, why should I be, right? But I think once you are confident and once you have a strategy or a plan, you can approach anybody with that confidence. And I also think having a strategy or plan gives you confidence, because you kind of know where you're headed. It's like, I'm not just doing this project just to do it. Like I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna get this and that's gonna do that.
What type of plan are you making for these type of projects?
So for Hoop Dreaming, my plan was to get into USC. I was like, look, I'm gonna make this film. It's gonna be dope as fuck, and I'm gonna get into school. I'm gonna get a full ride, and then I'm gonna make a feature film.
Boom.
And you see what I'm saying? Like 3 years. And so I could go to people and call in favors and be like, yo, this is the plan, right? And it wasn't like, don't get me wrong, it's not like I called in a favor for like $1 million. You know what I'm saying? I literally was like, bro, let me use your house to shoot. Yeah. Or I had a fraternity brother who worked at the YMCA. Yo, let me shoot at the YMCA. Like, it was more so for like locations. You know what I'm saying? I just called up people like,
use your connections, use your network.
That's what I'm saying. That's a small,
maintain your network so you can do that.
That's a small ask. You know what I'm saying? That's not a huge ask.
It's a small ask if you've been like in contact with them. And I feel like a lot of times,
I wouldn't
sometimes
call
people
nobody you
hop
ain't
out
talk
real
to
quick.
it from, you know what I'm saying, from the hospital, like, yo, I got this project.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But I think that's part of the plan too, though, is like being intentional about, you know, maintaining that. Because I think especially in the arts, like you can be in your own world and writing and doing stuff, and then it's like, you know, where have people been this whole time?
Yeah, and people probably called you for a few favors too.
Yeah, people have called me. I'm laughing because I just got a call yesterday, and I was just like, bruh. But yeah, it happens.
Some outlandish shit.
It's like, bruh, like, but no, people call me, and it's all, you know what I'm saying, it's love. If it's love, it's love. And so it's like, it's whatever. But, and also about maintaining relationships, like you said, being intentional about that. Like, who are you? What's the company you keeping? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think that's just as important. And so, yeah, I'm not talking huge favors, but just, can I use your spot to film? Or can I, you know what I'm saying? Asking people to work is tough, but what I will say, at least for me, it's like, it's trading. Like, you work on my project, I'll work on your project. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, it's not necessarily a favor. And I heard you mention something that's key, where you're like, you know, people who are, everybody's kind of like in there.
You're trying to level up, and it's like you want to work with people you know too, but you also need to have space to move up. And
I think that's okay. And I think sometimes when you're not the one who's like kind of inching out there, you could probably feel a little hurt by it. Like, damn, you're not trying to look out. But I think you got to understand that I can't help you if I don't get
that's
to where I'm trying to go.
Yeah. Like, now you can bring people in.
You see what I'm saying? So as long as you, and that's something I'm big on, is like, as long as you know that your people solid, then trust that.
And I think that's something people have to know about you, because then they won't hate on it if like, oh, do your thing, because
exactly.
Hit me up when you need a PA or whatever.
Because I know you got me and I got you.
100%. You got to know your people solid, and that's what I'm like, yo, I'm solid, and I know I'm solid. So as long as everybody's solid, we all gonna be good. I'm not tripping if somebody.
That's good.
If I know they solid, I'm not tripping, because everybody kind of has to get there to kind of to pick you up. So and Issa Rae actually said this is like, so it's okay with like just working with people like laterally, right? If your friend is starting to like do this, and now you're like, yo, can you act in this skit I'm trying to do? And they're like, bro,
I'm on TV now.
Yeah, like I can't act. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's a legitimate thing. Like,
but sometimes you can't. But yeah, and I've seen that as well with some of my friends who are talent. Now it's like they're a lot more conscious about what else are they doing, because they don't want to look like, oh, I'm on TV, but I'm also doing this. So like, you know, people from the outside might think, oh, you're still struggling, or
exactly.
They're trying to build a brand. Brand is everything, especially in today's like celebrity worship type market. Like, brand is everything, and so I get that. And so to be honest, if I or not even if, like, people I see doing really, really well, that's just inspiration. It's like, bet, let me get my shit together. So, because I know when I get there, I'm super good, because I already got people right there who gonna fuck with me. So
I get it together.
Yeah.
On mother. Get it together. Shout out DMV area, or DC specifically, because I made sure, like, what neighborhood.
Yes, please. Shout out Edgewood, One Deuce, Langham Park. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, man. I just knew we had a bunch of kids from Banneker at OU, and it was a thing apparently.
Yeah,
they used to come recruit. Oh, for real? You know something about it? Oh shit. Okay. What's up?
I'm telling you, it was. I swear, a third of Elon was from DC, Maryland area. Another thing I want to ask you about, as far as your lessons learned throughout this, how have you been able to balance filmmaking and whatever you need to do to survive? Have you been able to work in the industry as well? Is it one of those things where, are you looking for connections to work on a set, or like, if you were working in the industry, or if you're not, I'm not sure. Like, kind of what are you looking for as far as being able to totally immerse?
Absolutely, yeah. Last year I was working at Spring Hill Entertainment in development, which is LeBron James film company. So I got an opportunity. So
you're in development. That's your main key as far as the writing, creative process, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely a writer. So I'm
like, you wouldn't be a camera op and stuff like that necessarily.
I wouldn't be a camera op. I'm not calling myself. This is what they classify me as talent. Like, because I'm a writer director, but development is something that I love. Like, I absolutely love the development process, like the ideating and the breaking story and you know, and pitching, like that I really, really love. So that was dope. And I got to meet a ton of great people and help with like Space Jam 2, which they just wrapped. Right now I'm at Matador. I actually just got hired at Matador Content to work in development as well.
Oh, good.
In the end of the semester. So those are probably the only two like job, like 9 to 5 jobs.
I like to hear that though, like to be able to work in at least a space that's kind of adjacent or that makes sense. Because of course in LA, a lot of people, it's like they're trying to make their own content and their own stories, but you're also not in the certain relationship circles to really like get everything moving as much as you want to too.
I was there when I was teaching.
Exact same. But you got to make stuff, but it's like. No,
for sure. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be able to really 100% focus on being creative. I mean, along with school, school kind of afforded me that opportunity because I did receive the scholarship. I was able to like also live and like, so I'm able to really just focus on being creative. But yeah, I mean, those gigs were dope. And then sometimes I pick up gigs like for example, I was AD on the gig I just did that was executive produced by Ben Corey Jones, or I was I was script soup on a on a
every time I talk to Nick, he's doing something else for somebody else.
Yeah, this is what I want to know about, because even like with some of our friends that we were talking about and Dama that we talked about a few episodes ago, or in a couple of episodes ago, it's like as they're building up teams too, it's like, well, what people can work together. Like if you've done some work ADing or whatever it is, like it's always just trying to pull people together for that.
Absolutely, you want to get a solid team. That project I was helping a classmate that's super dope. She directed it, Latia Solomon. Shout out to her. It's called Decipher. So that's the one that Ben EP'd. That was dope. But I'm also not an AD though. You know what I mean? I'm a writer director, which I would love to meet cinematographers, editors.
Editor seems like the hardest thing everybody. I need one. I got to call one on Friday.
A bomb black editor would be dope to find.
I know a couple out here.
Would be dope to find.
Some who are kind of like trying to hustle to get some work, and then some who are like Hype Williams type shit. But that's different levels. But
no, that would be really dope to find.
That's what you need for sure.
Editor, cinematographer. I mean, really, like I said, really all of it. Set design work, like you need across the board. But a black editor would be really dope, really dope to find. And so I've been able to find work like that. You know what I mean? Just random gigs that are kind of posted, or even directing gigs that somebody like might tap me to direct a commercial or something like that. You know what I mean? It's definitely ways to do it, but none of it. I don't think any of that comes without. Whatever you want to do, if it's writing, directing, editing, like you just have to do something first so that people will give you that job. You know what I mean? And so that you gotta know that, and you gotta have the attitude of like, I'm just gonna do it for myself, and then just work your way up.
What do you think is the key of what you possess inside of you that has been what's helped you get all your opportunities? Like, is it really like, I'm just a super fire writer, or is it relationships, your planning? What would you say?
Planning, being intentional.
Not the skills.
I don't. You said what?
Not the skills.
I mean, the skill. Well, you know what they say, right? They say that like hard work beats talent.
Talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I definitely the skills for sure. Like I am a fire writer. You know what I'm saying? But I think just to the question of like, what is it? What's that drive? Or what is that drive?
That really helps you get the wins.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. I'm just like, I don't take no for an answer a lot. I'm audacious. That's probably the best word. Audacious.
What audacious mean? Oh, damn, my water's over there. I'm sorry.
No, you good. You gotta be audacious, and what that means is like, go for the shit that you like. You gotta know that you deserve everything. I deserve everything, and so I'm coming for everything because
I like that
I deserve it, and so you gotta be. You know who's audacious, and this is kind of a segue, but like Taylor Toynes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, we shouted out Taylor before too.
Yeah, you gotta be audacious. You gotta be like
for Oak Cliff in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta be like you gotta be like, that's mine, and I'm coming to get it. And you gotta, to be honest, and it's a little bit not braggadocious. What is the word? It's a little bit like not
arrogant.
But there's another word for
egotistic.
No, now you're taking some jabs.
The other side.
I mean, I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know.
But it's a little bit like, I guess you could use the word arrogant, but I think
you're talking about like good arrogant, like when you're like, confident? Yeah, I'm on mine, like this is mine.
Like a step above confident?
Yeah, like a good arrogant, but I think the thing about arrogance is like, you still got to be humble. Like if I meet anybody, I'm gonna still be humble, you know what I'm saying? But you got to know that about yourself, and what I was going to say was, a lot of that, again, comes from like that rap shit, you know what I'm saying? Like that, because I tell all the people,
you got to have a good talk, but you got to be able to back it up.
You got to be able to back it up.
But if you can back it up and you never talk about yourself, like, you're still in obscurity.
Yeah.
Which is the conversations that I tend to have with a lot of creative people, is that they're real, like, either you know, like in the corner with their work and their work is so great, but it's like, bro, like,
what you doing?
Put it out there,
but what you doing? So, yeah, you just gotta go get it. You gotta again be audacious. That's the word. That's the word I'm going with. Yeah,
I like that. At the end we do a shout out, but today we are shouting you out. So is there anything you want to share? It sounds like you might want to meet a dope Black editor. But anything like about your feature film, what you got going on?
Lead the people to look at anything,
to support sites? You.
Yeah, I mean, so my website is thenickbrooks.com.
Can you spell that for us?
Yeah, so THENICKBROOKS.com. And that's where you can find my work. That's where you could follow what I'm doing. A lot of times, sometimes I'm casting or looking for editors or, trying to crew up on a project. Mm-hmm. So definitely link with me on there. We Were Born Kings. I'm trying to claim it. You know what I'm saying?
Trying to claim it, or you claiming it?
I'm claiming it. I'm really excited about the project. Really excited about the story. Yeah, I mean, I would just say link with me on the website. Kind of follow the movement, see what we're doing. And yeah.
Social media?
So Instagram is Ben, BEN _Kenobi, KENOBE. Twitter, same, all of that. Follow me on there. I don't have Instagram right now. I had to.
You lying, man. What's the second time we done caught you up on some shit, man? You lying, right?
So if you hit me,
talking about look up Ben Kenobi.
I'm saying you can look it up.
Not found.
Yeah, I'm there. You
just ain't doing nothing.
You gonna peep me? I'm just not doing nothing. I don't like have it on my phone right now. But
that's real. You gotta take a break sometimes. We gotta talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta. I'm trying to lock in. You know what I'm saying? This. I realized that again this year is it's a lot of big shit I'm trying to do. Like, I'm graduating in May. It's about, you know what I'm saying? It's like I gotta roll right into it. Like it's nonstop.
Yeah. You gotta do a good job of balancing relationships and being a little mixy and also getting your stuff done.
Yeah,
you do.
You gotta find what
that's
works.
a hard line to figure out, and sometimes it changes.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes you gotta go dark for a minute and
Sometimes you do, or you know what I'm saying. I hate to say it, but sometimes the people you fucking with is the people that you're working with. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
True, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I've been rocking. Is the people. I mean, I'm still
the real people know what's going on.
You know,
and so everybody else is whatever.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I kind of feel like that lately too. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The people I'm
talking to you, and you know what's going on.
Exactly. The people I'm rocking with, we all on the same page. You know what I'm saying? We might link and we might go to a bar or something, but we still gonna be talking about the script or the story. We still gonna be breaking story. You know what I'm saying? And that's another really cool thing about kind of living in your passion and living in your purpose is it don't feel. I mean, I'm sure to get to a point where it will start to feel like work because that's just the nature of life, maybe. But at least it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like life. You know what I'm saying?
You're excited to do.
It's like work. It becomes a lifestyle more so than a job, and so. It feels good being in that space and having the people around me that I really fuck with and I really love. We all are kind of doing the same thing, so there is no. I don't really have that dissonance. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came on. You seem like a cool person. I'd like to hang out sometime.
True.
Not I'll shoot my shot on the podcast.
No, please.
We should hang out sometime. Have you seen?
I've already been telling him about Damo. So.
No, I really appreciate the invite.
I'm about to invite him to movies. And hopefully we have people who listen learn some things or something has sparked about your work ethic or your creativity or whether it was the structure. He told you where you can reach out to him even though he's not on Instagram for real.
And that will link.
Shoot me an email.
Yeah.
I've had again I just said I'm going dark. But in the past, I've had people that reach out yo, can we grab lunch or something to talk about you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. So I'm open to emails. Just hit me up.
That's cool, man. And look forward to seeing what happens with the festivals. Best with all of that.
Y'all see y'all at
I'm ready.
Keep up with that.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
We end every week with a question of the week. Lex, you got a question? Or you want me to ask the one out the top of my head? No, ma'am.
Oh, do you have one off the top of your head?
Got you. Okay. Blank is my superpower.
We did that before.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the second one in my head is, what are some things that bring me joy?
Okay.
For yourself, and you can answer.
Bring me joy.
Mm-hmm.
I really love freedom. And so by that, I mean, being able to do whatever the fuck I want to do when I want to do it makes me extremely happy.
Yeah.
And I know that there might be like a cheat code answer, but like literally if I want to just, cause I don't go out a lot. I don't do a lot, but if I just want to sit home, I can sit home. If I want to go shopping, I go shopping. Like, but just having like the freedom to kind of move however I want to move makes me feel good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's something that's easy to kind of take for granted too.
100%. I mean, because we look.
So a lot of us kind of live like that, but it's like you feel more stressed than if you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, because we trying to make ends meet or do whatever we got to do, and if you really analyze it, it's hard to be free. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's something, and
I actually disagree with that, but okay. I'm gonna let that cook. Yeah,
I'm about to say we could rock on it. But yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Lex, what about you? What brings you joy?
For me, I'm gonna give a simple answer. I'm gonna say something I just realized like last week. My fresh flowers and my roses, like when I go over to the grocery store and get my bouquet, like I try to keep a bouquet in my vase out there. Like I notice on those days are always my best days because I'm always like, yo, like they smell so good. I'm like, I feel better. Like looking at my flowers being around, I'll stop and take my breaks and like smell the flowers. And just the idea of like, nobody sent them to me. I just went and got them. I'm like taking care of myself. I always feel like in a really good mood, like when I get my flowers and have those around. So I noticed that that's something that really like makes me feel good.
I love that.
Like feel like I'm depending on anything else or any person or whatever.
Just adding like color, literally and figuratively to your life. Mm-hmm. For me, I do two simple things. So one is sunshine. So just sitting outside, like being able just to enjoy some sunshine. But the second one is like fresh out the shower, like lotioned up, getting into clean sheets. It's like the best thing, and it is just the small little joys of life. But it is so nice to be fresh and clean and all that straight into like freshly clean sheets.
Yeah, that's dope.
It's so nice.
That is good. Thank you, Nick Brooks, for being with us.
Shout out to Nick.
Thank you.
We'll have to catch up again in the future, see where you are then.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Bye, y'all.